Welcome to the Mommy Zen Podcast with Marianne Clyde.
Hi, this is Marianne Clyde, and welcome to another episode of the Mommy Zen Podcast. Our affirmation for today is, I am fully aware of how my actions and attitude affects those people that I love. And to talk about that, today my guest is Alyssa Phillips. Hi, Alyssa.
How you doing, Marianne? Good morning.
Glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Alyssa's a family law attorney with the Mark B. Williams Law Offices in Warrenton, Virginia, and we're going to talk about the top 4 things that parents should not do when they're getting a divorce. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Can I start out, though, for just asking you, what is a family law attorney? What do you specialize in, and what kind of cases?
Good question, Marianne. Family law encompasses not only divorce and custody, but there's also adoption, there's protective orders, and sometimes involved in that are modifications of custody, visitation, and support as well. So I handle not just the divorce and custody, but also the adoptions, protective orders, things of that sort.
Okay.
Great question.
So you see a lot of divorces happening, a lot of child custody issues.
Absolutely.
And when parents are tense and they're at odds with one another, it tends to get pretty ugly sometimes.
It does. And you see adults not behaving, unfortunately.
Like adults, right.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, sometimes you see the kids are in the middle of that.
They get caught in the crosshairs, don't
Absolutely.
they? We're going to talk about the top 4 things that are kind of not good that parents do. What would you say the first one is?
I would say the first one is degrading a parent in front of the children. And, you know, you got to understand in these times, parties are really emotional. Parents are really emotional. Sometimes they don't see how their actions affect the children. And so when they're upset at one parent, they don't realize their audience. And you'll see them saying certain things like, your dad or your mom is not a nice person, and unfortunately those are not the words that they use.
Right.
And unfortunately that kind of, it has an effect on the children because when they go to the other parent, they're kind of worried they're going to be interrogated. What is mom, what is dad saying about me? And they're caught in the middle.
So they're never relaxed, in a situation like this, always aware that one is going to report on the other, or they're being unfaithful to one parent if they actually like the other parent.
Absolutely.
And then they're, again, caught in the crosshairs.
Absolutely.
So a really important thing to keep in mind is never degrade your ex-spouse in the presence of the children.
And I would say this, it's important because we say the presence of the children. There are times when parents, they don't realize the children are around them. So they might not be in the same room, but they're in the same household. And they're on the phone talking to someone and they're saying, can you believe he or she did this? And I can't believe this, and this is what I'm going to do. Children hear things, and a lot of parents don't.
Children hear everything.
They hear everything, and sometimes they repeat things that they shouldn't repeat.
Right.
So, you know, parents need to realize, even given the age of the children, they think, well, my child's only 3, they don't understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely,
Children,
they understand.
they're like sponges. And even if they don't understand what the parent is saying, they feel emotion.
Right.
So if they see that mom and dad are together and they're tense, they feel that, and so they get tense. So that kind of, gets onto them, and they feel tense anytime their parents are together.
I agree. And this is what, and parents can't understand why their children then might need counseling down the road because they thought they handled everything really, really well.
Absolutely.
Really normal, I think, for a parent to look for validation for their side of the argument.
Absolutely.
Very important not to use the children to get that validation.
Very, very good, because parents feel like if they get the children on their side, if there's a custody proceeding, that they're safe. They can put the child on the stand. And there again, they don't realize that's traumatic for a child.
Make a choice.
In front of both of their parents. I mean, that's horrible, but they think, well, I've got the children, they're going to want to live with me, they're going to want to stay with me, they don't want to be with him. And they don't realize that that's not in the best interest of their children. They should not be involved in any adult conversations or anything that's going on with mom and dad's relationship. The best case scenario is they don't know what's going on. Mom and dad, they understand, obviously mom and dad may not be together any longer, but if they see that mom and dad can talk to one another and they can communicate and be civil, then that's also going to hopefully down the road negate any situation where the child uses one parent against the other.
Right.
That happens as well too, and it's very common, as you know, I say to parents all the time, you know, not to say that your children are bad children, but it's common for them to say, if you don't allow me to do this, then I want to go live with mom or dad. The other
yeah,
parent.
and it happens all the time.
It does, and it's unfortunate because parents then are afraid to parent, because they don't want the child to be in that situation where they're going to the other parent saying, I want to come and live with you.
Right, right. Which actually then leads to another one of the things they do wrong. And what was it you told me about parenting? Co-parenting is an impossible thing to do if one is afraid to do discipline or another wants to be the Disneyland parent.
Yes.
And so one wants to be the good cop, the other wants to, you know, makes the other look like a bad cop. And so that the kids are caught in the middle.
Absolutely.
And they use that, like you were saying.
They do. And children need stability. No matter what age, they need stability. And so there needs to be some type of co-parenting going on. And sometimes I even tell parties, maybe even co-parenting counseling would be good for them.
And there are parents that do that, which is, I think, a wise thing. If you can't get along, let's meet and come up with things that are important to both of you.
Absolutely.
So very important to treat the other parent respectfully, because it's always going to be your child's mother or father.
Yes, and that kind of goes back to the first one about degrading a parent. The children are part of both parents. So when you put down one parent to the child, you're putting down the child, really.
That's
and
exactly
and they don't realize that that's how they're doing and how that affects the child. Going back to the co-parenting too, there needs to be, you know, there are parents that can't effectively communicate, and sometimes co-parenting counseling helps them break through that to find a way that's effective for both, to get stability in both households, whether that be bedtimes, whether that be homework, whether that be, you know, that way when they're switching from house to house, you don't really have trouble with the children adapting to the households.
Right.
Because the rules are the same.
I can't wait to go to dad's because I can go to sleep at midnight, and I can't wait to go to mom's because I don't have to do my homework.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's very inconsistent
Exactly.
and damaging for the kids.
I agree.
Another thing you mentioned before we went on the air is using the kids as messengers.
Oh, yes. And we
That's
see
the
that
third thing that we want to talk about.
We see that a lot. You see that in different forms. You see that sometimes with child support, where one parent will say, you know, here, give this to your mom or your dad. And the unfortunate thing about that is the child knows what that is. And so, and sometimes the parents will say, here, give this to your mom or dad, and tell them that I'm not giving them the full amount because I bought you school clothes or I bought you school supplies. You know, that's awful. That makes the child feel like I'm taking away from mom or dad's money.
And I'm a burden.
Right. And so they're afraid to ask. I see a lot of children that are afraid to ask their parents for things that they need because they feel bad knowing that the other parent didn't give them all of the money they're supposed to give. Or you see children saying, hey, mom or dad, can you buy me this for school? And they'll say, ask your dad. You know, that puts them in a situation where now they, again, feel like they're burdening their parents, and they're the go-between between the parents, and it's just not the way to handle things.
So never they should be used for any kind of money talk or money transfer, but even messages about, tell your mom I'll pick you up on Friday, or tell your dad that I'm coming early on Sunday, or tell your dad I'm not coming to his house this time, or any kind of conversation that is adult conversation should be done between the parents.
Absolutely.
And the kids should just know they are loved.
Absolutely.
By both parents.
That's a very good point, because you see that a lot where children are now in the middle of when their visitation exchanges are going to be, where they're going to be, what time they're going to be. And the problem becomes if one parent says, tell your mom I'm going to be picking you up on Friday when you get off the school bus. And mom had plans after school. And so now you have the other parent saying, well, tell your dad that he can't pick you up until 6 o'clock because we have plans. Now this child has to go back and forth. This child should just know.
And then it's the child's fault if everything doesn't come together.
Absolutely.
Which actually leads to the fourth thing that you were telling me before we went on the air, and it's about interfering with the other parent's time with the kids.
Yes.
You know, such as scheduling horseback riding lessons or piano lessons or something like that on a Saturday that the other parent was supposed to have the unlimited visitation.
That's
on
a good
that week.
point.
And that's really hurtful to the kids too, because the kid has to choose.
It is hurtful, and I will say this, it's an unreasonable denial of visitation, and that's the way the courts look at that. And what parents should understand is an unreasonable denial of visitation is a factor that the court considers and could transfer custody because of that. Because it's mistreatment of a parent and the child or children. And I don't think a lot of parents realize that. And so what they do is, it's a way to kind of get the children on their side. Hey, we're going to go do something fun, let your dad know.
Right.
You know,
right,
or
right.
let your mom know, or whoever's visitation time that is. And what they don't realize is the child is torn now.
Right.
They're in between both parents. They understand, hey, look, this is my time with dad, but I really want to go do this activity. And another thing that you're kind of seeing, and it's mostly children, teenagers in high school, is they want to go to football games on Fridays.
Right.
And
right.
so what the parent does is, the custodial parent will say, well, ask your dad or ask your mom if you can go to these things, knowing that...
Rather than being the bad guy and saying, not tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Knowing that, they're going to stay with me, they want to do these activities, and obviously that kind of flows into using the children as messengers as well.
Right.
But parents need to realize their role and their job as a parent is to encourage the relationship between the children and the other parent.
That is great advice. And we probably should end on that for this time, but that's just really important for you to know that the main thing a parent should do is encourage relationship with the other parent.
Absolutely.
And treat the other parent as an adult and not use the child as a pawn.
Absolutely.
Really important things. Thanks so much, Alyssa.
Thank you. I appreciate
Alyssa
it.
Phillips, Family Law with Mark B. Williams Law Offices. And thank you for joining us today. This is Marianne Clyde reminding you our affirmation for today is, I am fully aware of how my attitudes and actions affect those people that I love. See you next time on the Mommy Zen podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Mommy Zen podcast. For nuggets of encouragement and strength throughout your day, follow Marianne on Twitter at mommy_zen and Facebook at facebook.com/mommyjustbreathe. Also, you can join our mailing list, leave comments, or ask questions by visiting mommy-zen.com.